Welcome to this evening lecture on Monday, the 2nd of August 2021. I'm going to talk about the structure of cooperation. Martinus was born in 1890 and he passed over in 1981. When he was between 80 years and 90 years old, he of course was thinking of how his work should go on when he had passed over. And he had the idea to write a book on the structure of cooperation, how his noble cause should go on. And in the first place, he was thinking that he would write this book himself. But he had several book projects, and he was busy and working all the time. But when you are between 80 and 90 years old, it is rather limited how much you can write. Once he also said he planned to write a book of his memories, and he planned to write a book called The Third Testament, The Intellectualized Christianity. And he wanted to write two more simple books, the 5th and the 6th, The Eternal World Picture, Volume 5 and 6. But he realized that he could tape record what he said, and in that way he could have his books published. And the last 56 symbols, he had not written any explanation, but he had explained them in lectures that were tape recorded. And in that way it was possible to publish all his 100 symbols. And once there was a man called Sam Singlersen. He invited Martinus 3 days to his home on Ternevej and asked him to tell about his life. And these tape recordings is the basis of Martinus' memories. And then at a certain moment he wanted to write this book himself on the structure of the corporation, but he didn't get the time. So then he said to the board of the Martinus Institute, that the council or the board of the Martinus Institute, that he wanted them to put on the tape recorder on all their meetings. And they met every Tuesday or every other Tuesday. And then he said to the 7 board members, please ask and ask and ask, because you're the one who are going to let the work go on. So you shall just ask. And Martinus got some ideas, and then he said what he planned. And in that way he had passed on his structure of cooperation. Once there was a man in the board, he tried to write a book, and he finished this structure on the basis of what Martinus had said, and he gave this book to Martinus, and he read in it and said, oh, you can read a whole book, you can write a whole book on this subject. So it was not enough, or not good enough. But it was rather complicated to write this book. Because when he passed away in 81, they started to make this book, the structure of cooperation. But how should they make it? Because that was board meetings from 7 years. From 74 to 81, the meetings in the council was tape recorded. And it took 2 years, 4 years, 6 years. They didn't still have this book published. But then there was one of the board members got the idea that this book should have 15 chapters. There should be a chapter on Martinus Centre, Klint, a chapter on the Martinus Institute, a chapter on the magazine Cosmos, a chapter on economy, and a chapter on teaching, and so on. So they started with these 15 chapters, and then they went through all the tape recordings. What has he said about economy? What has he said about Martinus Centre, Klint, the Martinus Institute, and so on? So they put a lot of quotations down in these 15 chapters. And then there also was one of the board members, Ole Therkelsen. He went through the whole literature and looked if there is something in the literature that could say something about how the course should work in the future. And that helped quite a lot. And then 11 years after Martinus passed away in 1992, they published the first version of the structure of cooperation. And actually, at a certain time, I also was a member of the council, and I was in the council when the second edition was published in 2003. And Martinus talked about this book once in this lecture hall. We are now in Martinus Centre, Klint, and it was inaugurated in 1935. That's more than 80 years ago. But in 1975, there was a 40 years jubilee. And then Martinus was in this lecture hall and talked about the center. And he said that the purpose of this center was to learn to look on life just like God did. The purpose of the center is to learn to see with God's eyes. And also there have been an article, or rather 2 articles, published with the title God's Eyes. And how is God looking at the world? Well, according to the Bible, the world was created in 6 days, and on the 7th day, God said, "See, everything is very good." So I would say that God was rather pleased with himself. And that is also the basis of all Martinus analyses. So I think he put it in a very simple way. The purpose of the center is to learn to see with God's eyes. And I think it's very remarkable that Martinus has defended the so-called evil. He has defended the darkness and explained its role in the eternal life. And in that way, he has also solved the theodicee problem. How can an all-loving God allow that there are wars? I remember that in 1700 and something, there was a terrible earthquake in Portugal. And 20,000 good Catholics were killed during this earthquake. And they asked the priest and the Pope, how can an all-loving God allow that so many good Catholics are killed? And I also think it was Leibniz who posed this problem with God's justice. But that has been solved by Martinus through his eternal world picture. And in 75, he said welcome to people, and he would like to explain how it looked in the center when it had a 40 years jubilee. And in that talk, he said, 1 year ago, we put on a tape recorder at the board meetings. And he also talked a lot about the last book he wrote on. So highest priority, the last 10 years of Martinus' life, that was the Third Testament. And he would write a book that should present what we are doing here in Scandinavia. I would, that's my, I think that would be some 20,000 or maybe some 40,000 people in Scandinavia who are interested in Martinus cosmology. They are reading the books or they are going to lectures and so on. But outside Scandinavia, my estimate is that only 500 people on the rest of planet Earth is interested in Martinus cosmology. So there's a very few. And Martinus said in this talk that he thought now it was time to let the whole world know what we are dealing with in Scandinavia. What are we working with here, sort of. And then he said, we are working with the Third Testament. And in the same talk, he said, if people are asking, what are you doing? What are you working with? And then he said, actually, we are working with the new world morality. The new world morality. And he thought that this structure of cooperation should be like the new world morality. So we should try to behave and work together in the same way as the whole planet will do once in the future when we get the United Nations of planet Earth. In chapter 4 in Livets Bog 1, he is writing on the creation of an international world state. And that's a very, very interesting chapter. In a way, it's also Martinus' political manifest. And he wanted to tell the whole world that his works was the Third Testament. I think that is rather surprising. And it started out in 1971, 10 years before he passed over. He decided to write a small book with the title The Third Testament. And it should be a kind of introductory book to his collected works. And then Martinus said, I guess it was in 73, he says, I hope that I can finish the book next year, that it will be published. And then in 74 he came again. If I will still be in good health, I hope the book will be published next summer. And maybe he came once more. If my health will still be good, I hope I will be able to publish the book next summer. But what I know is in 75 he said, now I know I'm using to promise that you get the book next year. But I will do it if the health will be good. But I can guarantee, it's no fraud, I guarantee you will get the book. It was decided before I was born when the book should be published. I think that was a quite interesting statement, that it was decided. And actually the book was published 29 years later. In December 2004, the book was finally published. But in the meanwhile, in 75, he said, it's not only my little book that is called the Third Testament. My whole work, all my books together are the Third Testament. So the last 5 years, he worked with that, and he put this subtitle, The Intellectualized Christianity. He wanted to turn Christianity into a science. It should be shown that it is logical to behave like Jesus did. It's logical. It is scientific to behave like Jesus. It shall be shown in a very logical way. And Martinus can do that in his eternal world picture. But Martinus did not really finish this book. He worked and worked on it, but he didn't really finish it. And then he went over to the second plan, that he wanted to publish Livets Bog, 7 volumes with the title The Third Testament. But then he would write a short introduction to this book, The Third Testament. And he wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote on that introduction, a preface kind of. And then he realized, I won't finish the preface, or I have an even better idea. And that was that the 2 symbols, the one with the Christ figure and one with the darkness. He called it the light and darkness, and that is symbol number 23 and symbol number 19. And he published the books with these on the cover. And the very last days before he passed over, he was writing on a symbol explanation on these symbols. And the last decision by Martinus, that was that this explanation should not appear in Livets Bog. So he had these 3 plans, and then 29 years later, we published the whole thing in this book called The Third Testament, The Intellectualized Christianity. Sometimes I ask people, what would the world look like if we all behaved like Jesus Christ? I think it would be peace, love, and harmony, health and paradise. So that was Martinus' purpose, to show that's not a question of belief. It should be shown that that's logical. And in this book there is a lot of quotations from the Bible, but seen in the light of karma and reincarnation, you can show that it's very logical and true, all what Jesus said. And this structure of cooperation, in a way, is the Christ principle. If all behaved like Christ, that would be, that's a basis of the new world morality. So, in a way, you could say the structure of cooperation is written in his main work, Livets Bog, in 7 volumes. There it is told how we should behave, but he wanted sort of to make a shorter version of the new world morality. And at the end, the Institute published this book, The Structure of Collaboration. And he wanted that there should be teaching on this subject, that there should be lectures on it. And he wanted that all the volunteers who come here, that you know sort of the ideals or the rules of cooperation. So he also wanted to be very short, and I guess we have a short version at the reception, because I think if a volunteer comes and say, I would like to help you to peel the potatoes and the carrots. Okay, then you have to read this book before you start in the kitchen. That would be a little bit too much. But then there is a shorter version. And Jesus also said, nobody has a bigger love than the one who would give his life for others. And I heard when Titanic went down in 1912, this luxury ship, Titanic, yes, that there was one of the rescue boats that were too many people, and there was a risk that everybody will drown. And then there was a man who shouted, somebody must go out of the boat into the waves, otherwise we will drown all of us. And according to this history, there were four priests who went into the waves, they drowned, and they saved all the others. I mean, that's really, I would almost say hardcore, to give your life for the others. But if you are using a lot of your time, you are using a lot of money to help others, then you are also giving your life for others. And Martinus, he wanted, as long as it was possible, that there was a lot of volunteers. And they would also then give their lives for the cause, because they wanted to help as volunteers. There have been some scientific analyses of happiness, and sometimes Denmark or the Scandinavian countries, they rank very high in the statistics over happy people or happy countries. And there have also been individual studies on people who are very happy. And then actually it shows up that many of these people are volunteers. They are doing something to help others. And those people who are doing very much for others, they don't have to be a volunteer in some organization or something. You can also go and help good friends, help people in the family. But that's sometimes when you talk about karma, they say, if there's some of my friends who are not interested in Martinus, I talk about reincarnation and karma. And then they said that this karma theory, that is a kind of sleeping pillow, because if there are people there and they have problems, you just say that's their karma. So they think you can get a simple excuse for not helping others by saying it's their karma and it's their karma. But if you realize that the road to happiness is to make others happy, then it's not a sleeping pillow. Then it's really a source of inspiration. And I also think there are many volunteers here who, to me, appear as if they are happy and glad because it is so sort of blessed to give your life for others, to help voluntarily. And I would also like to come with a short quote from one of the smaller books. I guess it is The Road to Initiation. There he writes, he would prefer that there were only 1,000 interested people who are 100% interested in his analysis, instead of 10,000 people who are only 20% interested in his works. Because it's not the amount that is many who are interested, but it's more the quality. And if there are fewer that are 100% interested, that will give another atmosphere. That would give a total different wavelength. And in this cooperation, he says, if people want to help, but then they are annoyed for something they should do or help, they can get disappointed, they can get dissatisfied. And then Martinus says, then he would prefer that we leave the cause and work for themselves. Yes, but that's a good man and he can do so and so. But Martinus repeated on these board meetings. Maybe he said it some 20 times. We couldn't repeat it 20 times in the book, but he said it very, very often. If you are annoyed, please go away. If you are dissatisfied, please go away, because that would give quite a different atmosphere. So then also he didn't like that people sort of went on strike. If I don't get free dinner, I won't give any more lectures in this hall, for example. Yes, Martinus would say, yeah, but if you are disappointed or annoyed, it's better that you leave. And then one said, yes, Martinus, but if it is a whole group of lecturers who are disappointed, they want to go on strike, if they don't get paid or they don't get so and so, then Martinus say, yeah, then it's better that they leave all of them. Yes, but Martinus, then we lose a lot of money. That doesn't matter. This is not a business. This is a question of moral. So even if there would be lesser income and so on, the most important is that all people are pleased and happy and satisfied. And one of the main things in Martinus' structure of cooperation, that is, there is no membership. There is no union. You cannot become a member. And in a way he said that all people who are interested in helping and being volunteers, they are welcome. So there is no borders. Everybody is welcome to come and help. And in the first place, if there is a newcomer, maybe we could ask if he would like to peel tomatoes and carrots in the kitchen. And maybe it turns out that this is a very loving person and it's very harmonious. And then we can ask, would you like to do that? And it's still very humane and loving atmosphere. And then he says that if you want to be in this cause, you are working yourself in. By what you are doing, you are getting more and more a part of the sort of the movement, because you cannot say, I want to be a member and pay a certain amount of money. He also says, if people are very interested in his analysis and they are trying to practice the analysis in everyday life, they are growing into the good cause. But if then they get a little bit disappointed, a little bit dissatisfied and somewhat annoyed and so on, then you are working yourself outside the structure, the noble cause sort of. So I think that is an ingenious structure and an ingenious model. You cannot become a member by paying, and you cannot be thrown out. It's you yourself who decide if you want to be a part, by working in a harmonious way or by being annoyed or angry and so on. And also there was a board member called Ib Schleicher. And he said that for 15 years they had discussed how they should build a world organization. And one day Martinus came. Now I have the solution. And Ib was very interested because they had discussed it for 15 years. And Martinus said, we shall have no world structure. That was really a simple solution. So he wanted to give his analysis to the world. It's a gift to the world, and they are accessible for everybody. They are available for everybody on planet Earth, and there are no secret analyses. Some 20, 30 years ago, we had a visit from a rich American guy, and he had visited sort of all spiritual organizations all over the world. And in many of these organizations, there was a secret knowledge. And if you have been into this movement, you could progress in these secrets, or maybe you could pay and get more and more secrets. And then I told him, there's no secrets here. Everything is published. I guess he became a little bit disappointed because you want to progress and advance in the system. So all Martinus analysis is a gift to the world, and it's free to everyone. And he also said everybody is welcome to make a Martinus Centre in his or hers home country. Everybody is allowed to give lectures, have study groups. It's free. And for that reason you get rid of a lot of problems with the Martinus interest in many countries. But he pointed out that he wanted that the Martinus Institute should be responsible for teachings in Martinus Institute Copenhagen and Martinus Centre Klint. In these two places there should be given a teaching according to his principles. And he wanted here in Klint and in Copenhagen that we should not teach Steiner and theosophy and compare to New Age teaching and so on. We are not experts in Steiner or theosophy. So he wanted that the teaching here should be in 100% pure culture. And he wanted it to spread over the whole world in such a pure culture. But that couldn't be guaranteed. But then he wanted that this place should be a good example how we can teach in a pure way. Then some people say, oh, then it is a sect because we are only allowed to talk about Martinus here. But once I wanted to learn to give lectures on Martinus cosmology in German. And then I went to Goethe Institute because they teach German. And once I wanted to give lectures in French, and then I went to Alliance Française. And then when I was a child, I wanted to learn to dance. Then I went to a dance school. So what should that be sectaric? If you want to learn about Martinus, you could go to the Martinus Institute or the Martinus Centre, because that is specialized in this area. But that was a thing that was very important for him, that it shouldn't be mixed with other teachings in this place, because then you should compare and so on. So, yeah, I'm just trying to argue it's not sectaric, only why we are only teaching Martinus here. And why should we teach in other directions when we are not sort of studied them and experts in that direction? Martinus is a very extraordinary author. He also wrote how he wanted his books to be translated. And there was a university man, a university professor, he said, it is very few professors, it's very few writers who write how their books should be translated. And in the same way, Martinus once wrote an article on how his works would be accepted from the world. He said there will be a lot of criticism on my works. And then he wrote an article on how you should read Livets Bog. It is article number 14 in article collection number 1, and in Danish it is omkring mine analyser af livets bog, on my analysis of livets bog. Anyway, it's article number 14. And there he has described 5 different kinds of criticism. And the 2 first groups, A criticism and B criticism, that is people who are interested in his works. And C criticism, that is from scientific, materialistic people. And number 4, that is from some other spiritual New Age organizations. And number 5, the ABCDE, the E criticism, comes from fundamentalistic religious people, conservative Christians, Buddhist, Islamists, and so on. So he has written these. And then he said, people who sort of have understood his analyses and are trying to practice them in everyday life. And they are training and practicing to see that everything is very good. They are into the group of A criticism. And now we are on Crowdcast and YouTube giving lectures, and we would like that the knowledge on Martinus' work should come out into the world, the whole world. And when I was young, I thought it should go much faster. It's why don't they know about Martinus cosmology in England and in Spain and Italy? And sometimes you don't have the patience. It's so easy to understand. The whole world had to know about it. But Martinus had a lot of patience, and he knew that there are some speed for the natural evolution. And he said in a way that I guess would be in English, that you can have a mill. The mill of God is working slowly. And the people who can see that everything is very good, they can wait until God's hour are there. I mean, there is a proper time for everything. And in Danish is, A-kritikeren kan vente til Guds time inde. They can wait until the hour of God is there. So they are not stressed, they are not impatient. They know that everything is ruled by the best loving principles, and therefore they are sort of happy, and they are not disappointed or annoyed in any way. But now when we come to the B criticism, Martinus talks about that anyway, this noble cause, that is a big cause, because if it really is the Third Testament, that is of huge importance for the whole planet Earth. And when people hear about such a big cause, such a big cosmology, that will attract many ambitious people. And they want to play a big role. Maybe they even want to have a powerful role. And that can cause a lot of problems. So these people who are into the B criticism, they think Martinus, he's okay, and his writing, that's also okay. But they think that they cannot use their talents. They would like to play a certain role. Maybe they would like to be lecturers, or maybe they would like to be members of the council, or they want to play some kind of role, but they don't succeed. So they ask themselves, what is the reason why I'm not playing this role? Of course, it is because Ole Therkelsen is saying no to me, or it's because the council is saying no, or it's because the education team says no. But that is because they are idiots, they are ignorant. Because I know much better. And then you sort of get annoyed and disappointed and angry with the people. So these people are standing in the way for my ambitions or my wishes. So they are the cause why I'm stopped. And then there can be a kind of a very strong criticism or very big disharmony because they are attacking these people. And then it's also important that the whole world knows that these people are ignorant and stopping that the noble cause is becoming. So there can also become such a political campaign where you are talking bad about other people and trying to make them black. It's almost like in politics. In the Danish parliament is called Christiansborg. And in parliament there is a government and there is an opposition. And what are they working with in the opposition? Overthrowing the government. And how can you overthrow the government? By making a very strong criticism of the government. So of course that is their holy work, to overthrow the government. And in that way they are also kind of into the group of B criticism. And Martinus writes in this article, number 14, in article collection number 1, he writes, if life or if the providence has chosen a person to fulfill a certain mission, there is no power on earth that can stop that. Not even ignorant people and so on. So everybody should also just relax. If I am really chosen for this mission, I will get it. It's not other people who are against me that can stop it. No power can stop it if a person is born or chosen for doing such a thing. And then Martinus wanted, in this structure of cooperation, that there could be some criticism. They could say, wouldn't it be better to eat at 5:30 instead of 5 o'clock? And of course, all kinds of criticism are welcome. And they can judge, and sometimes it's a good help to get a criticism. But it's only when it becomes such an evil criticism that it leads to attack, and then it leads to a very bad spiritual atmosphere. So he thought the most important thing was that there was a good atmosphere here, and that would attract interested people. And as I said before, even if there would be a decline in the economy, it's not so important with the economy. It's the good, loving climate that is the most important, while that will attract the right persons. And then it will grow in the real way. But then it'll go very slowly, Martinus. Yes, but that doesn't matter. And in a way, we should try here to practice the Christ culture. And it takes a long time before we can get crucified without being annoyed or be dissatisfied. But so it takes much to become a Christ being. So even when you are tortured to death through 9 hours, you should pray for them, those poor people. They are torturing themselves. Father, forgive them. They do not know what they are doing. So in this structure of cooperation, Martinus said, if people would like to make a competition, that should be who can carry the most crude offense. When you are offended, you get annoyed. But if you should compete, who can take the heaviest offense without getting irritated? Because that would also be to practice the Christ principle of forgiving everybody. So that was the aim of the structure of cooperation. Once there was also a printing office at the Martinus Institute. And you know, there are people who are printing books and printing newspapers. And at Martinus' time, there was very often the printers went to strike, and then you didn't get your newspapers. And then Martinus said that he didn't want the Institute to go on printing books, because then the book printers might go on strike. So he said the Institute should work with so little as possible. If others can print books, they can publish books, then let others do that. So the Institute shall only do that what others can't do. And the most important, according to the laws of the Institute, is that the Martinus Institute, the council, shall protect Martinus works and shall sort of conserve so they are not changed, and they shall also see so that they are published with the best possible translations. And the institute should also produce a magazine, Cosmos, and they should teach here in Klint and also at the institute. That was the most important thing. So I think that's also a thing that would simplify it very much. The institute should do as little as possible, only that what others can't do. And at the end, I'd like to say that, or just repeat maybe, that Martinus said that we are actually working with the new world morality. And he designed a flag, and I think I would start to talk about this symbol over here in connection with the flag. But this symbol over there, that is a universal symbol. It is symbol number 6, called the living being one. And it is this triangle symbol, and it is divided into 3 parts. And I'm praying to God that I will get a symbol on the wall, showing this symbol on the... there is still time for miracles, because it's on Crowdcast and YouTube. They can't see the symbol of the wall. You can see it. Okay, but the people here can't see it. Then I can stand in the middle of the... But then I have another question. This is a universal symbol of a living being. And in the analysis, it can be divided into 3 parts. And there is the I, the eternal self. That is with white color, this triangle. That is X1, the I, or the creator. And then there is a field with violet color, and there is... I just put my elbow here on the... So, the time of miracles are not over yet. The second part is with violet color, and that is X2, the creative power. And then we have the 6 basic energies in the created world. And these 3 things, Martinus called them X1, the creator, the white triangle, the violet color, that is X2, the creative power, and X3, that is the created things. And then I want to go on to Martinus' flag. And it was initiated or inaugurated in 1936. And this is a very universal symbol. I'm very touched. No, I just need to cough. This is symbolizing the living being in double format. In 2 ways, this symbol symbolizes the living being. Before we saw a white triangle and the violet area, and then the 6 basic energies. So we can see that this white triangle here, that is X1. And here with the violet color, that is X2, the creative power. And then here we have the 6 basic energies, that is what is created. This was the living being one on the wall, but this is a symbol of the living universe. So I think that is the most universal symbol that Martinus has drawn. But it is also symbolized in a second way, because this star cross you can see at the entrance to the lecture hall, and you can also see it on the front of the Martinus Institute. And this is also a symbol of the living being. And in that way, he says it is the I, the self, x1, and the circle here, that is x2, the creative power. And then the rays in this star, that is x3. So in itself, the star cross is symbolizing the living being, and the whole flag is also symbolizing the living being. And Martinus has talked about this Martinus Centre, where we shall learn to see with God's eyes. We shall learn to see that everything is very good. He thinks that this center will exist in 100 years, in 200 years, 400 years, 600 years, 800 years, 1,000, 1,500 years. He had a big vision that this center would grow and grow and grow. And there are good possibilities, because just outside here, once there was a lake 2 kilometers long and 2 kilometers broad. It was 4 square kilometers. But in 1870, we got steam engines and pumps, and then they pumped out all the water. And now it's an agricultural area out here. So there is a lot of space for a big city. And Martinus had the vision that this center would turn into an international university for spiritual science, for cosmic science. And I would really like to see this center in 100 years, 200 years, 400 years, 500 years. But hopefully I can see it in 3,000 years when I'm in the kingdom of bliss, in the kingdom of memory, and can see how this place would have developed. And this flag was inaugurated in 1936. And he gave a talk you can read in the old Danish Cosmos. But now I come to the special point. I don't know if Martinus has written it. I have not seen it written. I'm not sure that Martinus has said it. But I've heard it somewhere that probably this flag will become the flag of the international world state. And he said that this center would exist for maybe a couple of thousand of years. But then he opened for the possibility that the center, the big international center for spiritual science, would move to Russia. Now it's Georgia in the Caucasus, Caucasian mountains in the south, where there is a very pleasant climate. And there was a man called Alf Lundbæk. He was together with Martinus very early in the years from 1928 to 1932. And he wrote a diary called Days with Martinus, these 4 or 5 years. And there he wrote that Martinus talked about that there in Georgia, there should, as in the Caucasian mountains, they would build a pyramid that was bigger than the Cheops pyramid, just to show what they can accomplish with new technology. And the 4 sides of the pyramid should have Martinus symbols. And I think now we have talked about the white triangle. That would be easy to take one of the 4 surfaces and make this white triangle there. And it should be made in a material of colored glass that should be maybe so thick so you didn't have to paint the pyramid so often. And then you can start to speculate which other symbols there should be on the side. But he was talking about this Martinus pyramid. And it's only a kind of speculation. I don't know, but I think it could be logical. It's a speculation that the center of spiritual science would be connected to the world government. And then I think it would be appropriate that this flag would be the flag of the international world state. You know, the European Union has its flag, the NATO North Atlantic Treaty Organization have its flag, United Nations has its flag, so it could also be nice if they could, because I think you can't possibly think of a more universal symbol for the world state. And then I have come to the end, and for me it's so fantastic just to think of that the purpose of Martinus Centre is to learn to see with God's eyes. Thank you for your interest.